Hello one and all, this is a really simple little instructional tips video on how to put transfers on your miniatures, and I'm going to go through these stages one by one for you. So with some like personal tips on how to make the most of each stage. It's a pretty simple process, but it could be one that maybe feels daunting. Obviously transfers is something that you've put on your skin all your life. When you maybe as a kid and stuff, you'd put tattoos on and that sort of thing. It's just water based. It's the same principle really, but with just some extra steps. So first you need to prepare the model, and if you're one of these people that will spray the model with some sort of satin or coat it with some sort of gloss finish, then it's after you've done that, the glossy one, that you would then put the transfer on. If you're not one of those people and you just want to leave the models unvarnished, then what you would do is just take some hard coat or some other kind of gloss that you use and just paint that on to the surface you want to put the transfer on. Let it dry. This is all an important points to make here. And then once it's dry, you've obviously got we'll call it a short shoulder pad, yeah? Let's look at it in those ways. Space Marines, some sort of squad markings or whatever, yeah? So it's now glossy, that shoulder pad. The rest of the model doesn't need to be, but it's dry. So that helps the transfer slide on and take to it. Now your biggest problem with transfers is them drying and some of it kind of like sticking up. So that's all a bit of an issue. So the one way you can try to help that as best as you can is then, once the things are dry, you take the next step, and that's cutting the transfers out. Take something really fine like a scalpel and cut your transfer out as close to the image as possible. So even if you've got to go roughly round it at first, then you really want to start really cutting into the actual shape of the transfer, you know. Or there's like in the case of like the Dark Angels, you know, the sword, it cuts right in and then you can come back out around the wings and then like that final heart shape bottom part to come to that point, and just really try and cut it round into that shape, because all that extra leftover invisible transfer is like going to be flappy stuff that could like catch on something you don't want it to and stick up, or it's just extra surface there that could discolor or do something in a different way. So as close as possible to the transfer, that's the next step. If you're doing like a few models at once, go right ahead and take a kitchen roll or something like that, and pot of water, and put the cutout transfers on it, as many as you like, and just start like layering water straight down on top of each one, and like top them all up with water as you go, and just leave them soaking on there wet. That way they're getting wet from above, from like I just take a paintbrush and just flop water onto it. They're getting wet from above, and then it's soaking into the kitchen towel, which is making it wet from below the paper part. So they're going to eventually, when you just leave it there, it's going to be able to slide off easy enough. And obviously the one that you've done the most water on, when you sense it's ready and you get a sense for these things a bit, I just take a paintbrush and I gently start to kind of like try and tease it off. This isn't something you want to be too heavy-handed about, because you can actually break a bit of the transfer off, snap like a bit of the image. I have saved that before and like taken it as two and like stuck the first one on and then tried to very, very carefully position the second one and slot it into place so that the image is built back again together like a jigsaw. But you don't really want to have to do that, and there's a chance it's not going to come together fine. Try to be careful if you can, but hey, there's always more transfers if need be, right? Okay, and then basically it will slide off the paper, just carefully on the brush. If stuff starts going wrong, like it starts folding over or it's back to front or all this, just keep your cool. Keep your cool. More water gently should solve the problem of anything like sticking down or anything like that. Just in there, and just like gently pick it up off the brush and come at it from below if you need to, if it's stopped coming from the top, and then just pick it up from below with the brush. And then once you've got your transfer on your brush, you don't want to be handling it anytime, because you're going to dry it out immediately, sort of thing, or damage it. just very, very carefully applying it to where you need it to go. And you're probably not going to put it on straight. You might want to go like that, and you'll probably stick it on like that at first. At this point, you don't want it too flooded. Obviously, the varnish is there to help it sort of move around a little bit and take a place, but you don't want it too flooded, because if it's too flooded, you want some water there, of course, for manoeuvrability, so you can get it to where you need it. But if it's too flooded, it's all just going to possibly come off, and it's not going to dry and adhere to the surface properly. And once it is dry, you'll have this problem of it possibly falling off. And that's happened to me when I was first starting out with transfers. You know, you touch it, and whoop, it's come off on my thumb, and that's really horrible, obviously. It's a case of trying to get it into position with only a little bit of water, just enough to make it move. So I would say use as little as possible and see if that makes it move. And if that doesn't, use a little bit more. So go less and then build very slowly up for moving your transfer. Now, once you've got it into position, you want to make sure there's not too much water underneath it. So like dab your brush on the rest of the kitchen roll, and to dry it out as much as you can, sort of thing. I'll give it a quick like that under the old armpit or whatever. Double dry, triple dry, and just gently touch it to it, or in some way. You don't really want to be doing the brushing motion, because you'll probably lift it off if there's a lot of water there. So maybe if it's just, you get a feel for like a firm sort of touch that kind of like squeezes the water out, but without moving the transfer. That's a skill that you will learn. It's a kind of a thing you can do, like an almost kneading action to try and get the water out. But you'll eventually, hopefully, get it there sitting on the bit of the model you need, right? Okay, your transfer's there. It's in place. It's locked down. Let it dry. Just leave it alone. Basically, you could then grab some water and then top all the other ones up, all the cutouts on your kitchen roll. Just grab them all. You can't make them too wet. It's fine. And then, slide off and repeat the next one. And then when all your models are done and they've all had that process that I've just described, once they're all dry, you then come back with a matte finish. So I will be using Lamian Medium, for example, and that basically takes the gloss or satin finish off of the shine off of the surface and brings it back to the original matte finish. And what that actually does over the transfer is seals it. So not only do you not have that one shiny bit, but it's then putting a surface of effectively very thin paint over the top to, completely seal it down. So the important thing to state about the Lamian Medium at this stage, when you are sealing, is don't use too much, because the transfer is still liable, if soaked, to come away. So again, this is just for sealing. You don't want to attack it with loads on your brush. So it's very, very careful. You don't even want to go like too strong painting actions or whatever, because you could lift the damn thing off. So just have in mind that there's a danger area at that moment in time. And if it does lift off, if it does start moving, my instinct would probably be, oh crap, all right, I'll try and get it in position. I'll try and mop up like I did before with the water, get it all out of there, and then let it dry. And it should hopefully dry fine. Any problems, you probably need to start again with a fresh transfer, but that should be fine most of the time. And there you go, you've got a transfer on. And that's the technique, really. And I know I've gone into the specificity of all of the steps, but I think that's needed here, because if you just give the instructions straight out, you can get them anywhere. But if you get the instructions from someone that's had things go wrong with them, then you get a bit of a heads up on what those things might be, and basically that video is for you. All right. I'll see you at the next one, guys.